my Facebook page started lagging.
All good.
No worries, as long as you found the link. Okay, guys, just to throw you off a little bit, we are recording. I pressed the record button like 10 seconds ago, as soon as Anne-Marie joined. So welcome to the Urban Platform episode number 3. Erin, Anne-Marie, guys, we got Anne-Marie on the podcast. It was really, really tough to bring her on, but she accepted today. So Anne-Marie, thank you for coming. Anne-Marie is our VP admin in the Urban Planning Association, and I really wanted more of our members to come in, and finally for the 3rd episode, we got her here. So Anne-Marie, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you so much. I'm very much on demand, but I wanted to make time for you guys during my week schedule, you know, very important stuff happening at UPA.
You know, when she's not outside gardening or, you know, writing papers or drinking tea or hanging out with dogs, she's our VP admin, or she's always working on schoolwork at a chocolate factory. You name it, she's probably had the best jobs on the planet.
Chocolate factory? I didn't even know about that.
Yes, I'm currently working at a chocolate factory, making and selling chocolate. It's loads of fun.
You bamboozled the bow. Good job. Can't go wrong with that.
I also have Christmas and Halloween and Easter and Valentine's Day surprises.
So wait, I have one question for you. So for Halloween, like, how does it work? Or during these seasons, right? Like, is it more busy? Is there more, like, what is the difference between a regular season versus an actual specific event that's happening on the calendar?
I mean, we sell the regular stuff during the year, but once there's an event, then we get out like all the decorations for that specific event, and we have different shapes for that event as well. So for Halloween, we had like pumpkins made out of chocolate, and then we get out like the purple, black, green, orange ribbons, anything that's like color themed. Same thing for Christmas. We have the advent calendars already out for the clients to buy, and then for Christmas it's only like red ribbons and tiny Santas to decorate the boxes. So,
Cute.
Awesome. Okay.
So on that,
Erin.
I'll go with our question of the day.
Oh,
What's your favorite season or holiday? What's your favorite holiday? Yeah. What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas. I have to say Christmas.
Oh, what are you going with?
Like, so wait, like favorite like season, like favorite
holiday. Favorite holiday.
I have to say Christmas as well. I just love the vibes. I love this, how the city changes. Everyone's mood sort of changes. People tend to be more merry at that time until after Christmas, when you get into January, mid-Jan, and then everyone's in a really bad mood. So
true.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna go with 2.
I'll do Christmas music like November 1st.
I haven't heard any yet. Maybe I'm just a Grinch, but it'll come eventually. I don't know. I love Christmas.
It's gonna be weird, guys. It's gonna be a weird one.
I love Christmas, but I have to say, being a Montrealer, my favorite holiday has to be Grand Prix weekend.
Oh, come on, man. If that was an option, I would have probably picked that too.
I made it an option.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Holiday, even?
Well, it's not like an official holiday, but to me, it's like what marks off the start of summer. And I don't know, I've had great memories either attending Grand Prix as a kid or working Grand Prix weekend and like working at the F1 in the VIP section, or going on Crescent Street on Grand Prix weekend. Like, for me, it's just like the end of exams, the beginning of summer, time to celebrate a bit. And everybody's just like very happy about it too. You don't have to watch the racing to be into it, but.
I know, Grand Prix was amazing this summer, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a lot of hate for that comment. Anyways, Erin, take it away with our topic for today.
So today's topic, it's not controversial. It might be, depending on where this goes. Today, we are looking at, drumroll please. No, okay, no drumroll. Okay, fine, thanks, Emery. Drumroll. So, our development project of the day is the downtown Point Claire Fairview development project. And we are going to go into some depth on it. We're going to explain it a bit and give our opinions on it. Now, fun fact, I live 10 minutes away from here, from the Fairview project. So I have slightly vested and biased opinions in this matter as a West Islander and as somebody who frequents malls and as somebody who has an Apple store at that mall that he goes to every couple of weeks. I'm biased, so I will say that.
No, and basically, so for the viewers out there, Aaron is the one who knows that area best. He's probably seen it firsthand. I'm guessing like the development going around that region, right? And while I'm here, who read a few articles before this episode began, and the way I was thinking about formatting it is, and Anne-Marie, you're just gonna bring in your opinion towards any points made, right? From what I remember you telling me.
Yeah, exactly.
What I basically did, and what I guess the general format is going to be, is I'm going to read a few points that I took. Okay, I can't see my text, but I swear there is text here. But I'm going to make a few general statements that I've read. I'll provide the links of the articles that I read in the description below, and we'll have a discussion on this. We'll see where it goes. It may go many different ways. That tends to be the pattern in our episodes. We just go off into weird tangents, but that's what makes it exciting. So, and why don't you start introducing it? Why don't you start telling us what you know about it, and then we'll jump in and bring some points in. Cool?
Sure thing. So a couple of things on this project. First off, it's being done by a couple of familiar names to Montrealers. If they're not familiar, you should check them out. I promise they're not sketchy, corrupt companies. I mean, they might be, but that's another story. But there are two companies that have a lot of projects going on in Montreal, so you should know their names. This project is being spearheaded by Cadillac Fairview at Fairview Shopping Center, so that's kind of funny. Cadillac Fairview.
Yeah.
And Ivanhoe Cambridge. I always say it wrong, but Ivanhoe Cambridge.
Really? He's part of it?
Yeah, so it's these two groups are part of this project, and there's a couple of steps to the project. So first off, last year or in 2018, Cadillac Fairview invested or decided they'd invest $100 million into the shopping mall. And what this is doing is across Canada, Sears stores have been shut down, unfortunately, because, Amazon killed Sears, or Sears has been killed.
RIP.
So, RIP Sears. Sorry if you have a vacuum that is still under insurance and under warranty.
RIP Zellers.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened? I completely forgot about Zellers. I'm not gonna lie.
Didn't Zellers come before Sears, or like they were the same company, right?
It was like the same thing. Yeah, we lost Zellers. Then Target was here for a year, and then Sears is.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a Sears at Fairview, and it was left empty and decimated by the death of Sears. So there have been plans to create a Simons in the mall. It's currently in progress. Work was supposed to be done in 2020, summer 2020. That hasn't happened yet. The reason is because of COVID and because construction industry was stalled in March. They're looking at an opening of the area of the mall renovations in January 2021. Simons will open in 2021, but August 2021. So the other renovations taking place is they're moving the food court from where it is now to the first floor of the Sears, and the second and third floor is going to become Simons. And sorry, it's not a food court anymore. They changed the term from food court to a dining hall.
Okay. Now I'm going to make one statement, okay?
Sure thing, Mo.
I found interesting, okay?
So that's about the mall itself. Now, there's a development project happening about 50 acres away, I believe, or 50 something away. I don't know. I read an article with a bunch of units. I got confused, but 50 something away, there's a whole downtown development project happening, which is what we're going to get into now.
So one thing regarding the mall, right, that I read on this article, okay, and this came from the Montreal Gazette, and I want to see if you agree with this or you think this is completely true. Because I often think it's important to discuss to how much of a degree is it really true? Like, does it hold up to the statement, or does it somewhat hold up to the statement that's being made? Okay. So one thing I'm reading here is that the Fairview Shopping Center, it's a central location, making it a natural transportation hub for buses and soon a new REM-like grain station. Now, the one thing that stuck out to me here, is it a natural transportation hub as of now? You guys are planning students, and the thing is, as planners, since you guys took Silvano's class, the reason I'm asking you this, and you guys have focused on transportation hubs before, if I remember correctly, based on what I saw on your project. Aaron or Anne-Marie, if you can answer this question, would you define it as a natural transportation hub?
Anne-Marie, you want to go first?
Or do you think it's going to become a natural transportation hub? There's a huge difference, right?
Huge difference. I think I have an idea on this, but Aaron, I'll let you go first as resident of the area.
So, as for this area being a transport hub, West Islanders would consider it a transport hub, partly because the main buses of the West Island being, here I go naming bus routes, 200, the 201, the 202, the 203, the 204, anything with the 200 basically. 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, 209. Oh, sorry, not the 209. The 219, no, not the 219. Either way, all the West Island routes somehow end up at Fairview. You look at a map of the West Island bus routes, somehow Fairview is the center. As for other modes, I mean, there is a Tesla supercharger station there, so for electric vehicles, maybe, and it's like one of the only points in the West Island for Tesla superchargers. And then you have to go to the Tesla dealership at the center of the city, and then one in Galerie d'Anjou, but there is nowhere else really to charge the Teslas. But as for a natural transportation hub, I would say there's heavy emphasis on bus, but you don't really see a lot of people biking there. You don't really see a lot of people walking there. You see people parking there, but it's not really like a hub of transportation where everything is linked together.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, like, all of like the ends of the island of Montreal are relatively underserved up to a certain point. So to say that it's a transportation hub when a lot of people don't use their bikes, don't walk, it's a bit far-fetched. And I would link that to something on the north of Montreal that has tried to do like the exact same project, and like there's barely even a bus route that reaches there. It's basically made for cars to go. So transportation hub, I'm not sure, is it going to become one? If they link it very, very well and carefully with like the REM and more buses and other modes of transportation, it could be, but at the moment it isn't.
Okay, so this statement doesn't true hold. And I wanted to confirm this, and I love the responses you guys gave me to my question, because I was thinking the same thing. And now I'm going to mention an interesting quote from this article, okay? It's about urban development, and I think all of us can really contest to this statement. There's some parts of the statement which I don't necessarily agree with, or because it's not giving a very good definition of urban development in my mind, okay? So it says, quote unquote, the idea behind an urban development is that you can get to all the services you require in a very quick, short walk. Talk about reducing the use of cars. This is perfectly suited. Let me know if you guys want me to reread it, or do you guys get the idea of what is being said here?
So yeah, there's a lot of emphasis in planning on the concept of the 15-minute city or the 8 to 80 city, where it's a matter of everything being accessible within walking distance. Now, in a matter of 15 minutes, you could reach a lot, and especially by foot. By 15 minutes, if you compare the modes, whether it's like walking, you have a smaller accessibility, and then if you expand and start using bike, you could reach more, and then as you go out and you use buses, you could reach more, and then at cars you could even reach further in a span of 15 minutes. The concept of a walkable city is interesting, especially because this area is heavily dominated by cars right now. But if because the current plans are to include the REM station at the heart of the new development, which would not be at the heart of Fairview itself, but it would be at the heart of the new downtown development 50 acres away from Fairview. So the two would be heavily linked. And as Henry said, it's really a matter of integrating the modes together. If you're only promoting walking, that's not integrating all modes of transport.
Exactly. And that's why I didn't agree with the statement. I thought this was very, they had to go a little bit deeper into the definition of urban development. Anne-Marie, what do you think about this statement? Anything else to add?
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, if it's not integrated, it's not going to work. It really has to be integrated. And even the fact that it's separated. When you have integrated like residences and shops, then it's easier to reach everything. But that concept is completely separated. So it's like living development, and then next to it, the Fairview Cadillac, which has its advantages and disadvantages. But if the REM goes through the living development, it really has to be linked to the Cadillac Fairview section, or else people are just gonna go home, take their cars, and go shop.
Yeah. So the thing is, when I was reading up on this, right, they sort of remind me of the Solar City development in a way, in a very different way. And you know, it's funny because at first, when not all the REM lines were announced, the first sort of news that we heard on this end in the South Shore thought, oh, it's coming towards this front, towards the L section, which is a neighborhood of housing, and the C section, right, in between it. And my whole confusion was, I'm like, wait, it's literally coming out in the corner of Broussard, meaning that all the other areas will not have easy access to it, which is a bit unfair. I wish it was a little bit centralized. But then apparently Panama, in Broussard, like Terminus Panama, it's a bus station that's also accommodating the REM according to the maps. So that sort of did, in a way, solve the issue I had with it, or the issue that the thing is, I feel like, look, the way this development is happening, right? As long as, now I know that not everyone will have easy access to it, realistically, right? Especially people outside these areas or outside these developments. These developments are usually very expensive. They're talking about their first phase of development being residential buildings, like condominiums and everything. And the thing is, Ivanhoe Cambridge, Aaron, can you remind me, is that the company that's behind it?
So it's both, like the residential development is going to be undertaken by both Ivanhoe Cambridge and Cadillac Fairview.
It's going to be expensive. They're going to be, Ivanhoe Cambridge also helped design, or was part of the whole design of Place Ville-Marie, the building in downtown Montreal that has Bonaventure, that has the metro, and that has the train, that has trains, metros, and buses. It's a transportation hub in a way. It's a really nice one, but I can imagine these buildings being very expensive. So like, this will only be really available to those who have, I don't see this being an option for the middle class. It's a very difficult place. It's expensive. I just think it's expensive. This development is expensive. I don't know how useful it actually will be. It'll be useful to those who can afford it. Simple.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's what the market needs, especially with projects like what's happening at Royal Mount or the Triangle, which is like a 15-minute drive without rush hour, or if you look at Bois Franc nearby, which is relatively high priced. I haven't read anything about accessible housing, or sorry, not accessible, social housing or family inclusive housing in these policies. I know that the City of Montreal recently came out with the 20-20-20 rule, but since Pointe Claire doesn't really fall into the category of the City of Montreal, I don't know what it's looking like in terms of affordable housing numbers. But I think As for your question, is it going to be useful? It's going to be useful if it's properly integrated with existing transport systems. So, like I said, Fairview is home to the West Island bus terminal. All of the West Island bus routes either end on the 211 passed out, which I'm sorry for all those people who've done that. I personally haven't, but as a West Islander, I've heard the stories. Or you end up at Fairview somehow and you're like, I have a half hour to kill before my bus comes. I was a little concerned at first that the bus station or the bus terminal would be located completely separate from the REM. And I was worried that you'd have to walk through Fairview to get there. But upon reading more plans, I'm finding out that the two are going to be integrated, which makes me happy because walking across the mall isn't necessarily accessible or convenient. But from what I'm hearing, well, it's not convenient for your wallet. You're like, oh, look at that in the store. I'm going to go buy the Legos, or I'm going to go to the Apple store and buy the new phone or buy AirPods, because you just have to walk like every day going from the REM to the bus stop. But apparently the two are going to be integrated.
Strategy, horrible for the budget.
Yeah, exactly. And then people are like, well, I can't afford my REM. I'm going to stay home.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's a matter of integrating these modes together.
No, I totally agree. And
good news. Sorry, I wanted to add one more thing.
No,
there is going to be a seniors development in this new project. At what phase this is going to be, I'm not quite sure. This project is said to have between 8 to 9 phases, which is rather extensive for a development project. This development of the downtown West Island is supposed to take 10 to 15 years, so it won't just happen and the genie comes out, Will Smith goes, you now have a downtown. That was a bad Will Smith impression. Whoops.
No, you got me confused for a sec, but yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight, so 10 to 15 years, okay, cool, but hypothetical.
I mean, they have time to develop a transportation hub in 10 to 15 years, right?
Yeah.
But the city has to be in on it.
Yeah, we have to make sure that developers and the city have constant communication. It'll just lead to more coordination between them and more organization for the final project to be implemented. And you know what's funny?
But it's not the city, right? It's the city of Pointe Claire, which will have different priorities than the city of Montreal. But the good news is, for this project specifically, they don't have to go through the mess that's happening right now in either Royal Mount or with the Hippodrome. Currently, it's already zoned for mixed use. So they don't have to go through the negotiations and arguing between city halls as to why it should be changed to from industrial or from a wasteland or from whatever you want to characterize it to a mixed use.
Now, do you have any information on the city of Pointe Claire? Like, do you find them, because, you know, like I see a lot of differences between the different, like, for example, I see a huge difference between the city of Brossard versus the city of La Prairie. Like, there's a huge difference in the way they organize and approve projects, right? So, but in your opinion, on, if you do know, obviously, does the city of Pointe Claire have a good reputation in terms of being organized, approving projects, and also making sure these projects are accurate to their bylaws? That's another huge thing, because I noticed some city officials will be confused about their own bylaws of what is restricted or what is allowed in a certain development.
Yeah, so the city of Pointe Claire has had an interesting series of developments lately. Recently there was a bar called the Pioneer that was closed down. It was going to be, and it's like in historic Pointe Claire, or the village as we call it in the West Island. They want to convert the bar, they closed the bar and they wanted to convert it into condos, which based on current zoning wasn't allowed, but the developer like still pushed the city, and it wasn't really against the bylaws. It wasn't really in favor of the current bylaws, but the developer gave some incentives, and it's in the process of happening. In terms of, it's like really tricky in terms of Point Claire because of that project specifically. I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah, no, it's just a general question. It's a very difficult question to answer because obviously you're not part of the city and you haven't really worked with the city. We're just students trying to make some speculation, right? Now, speaking of the phases you mentioned earlier, you said there were 8 or 9 phases in this development. And when I read the Gazette, I read 2 different articles regarding this same project and they sort of contradict each other. And I purposely wrote this in my notes. So it's kind of funny. So they talk about the first phase of the project, right? First article says the first phase will be predominantly residential. It'll be rental apartments, a boutique, hotel, as well as a public plaza. Then the other article says that the next phase of development will be to add to the rental apartments and hotels. And the third and final phase, now they're saying there's 3 phases in this article, will focus primarily on more residential development. So I'm a little confused because, do you know why I'm confused here? Because they repeated residential development. And now I wish they knew, instead of adding this information, it's very general, it's very vague. I want to know exactly how they plan to add on to the residential development and the purpose of primarily focusing on residential development, because come on, I thought this was going to be a transportation hub. I thought it would focus on people's accessibility. You know, housing is important. I do understand that, don't get me wrong, but there are also other areas we have to look into once it comes to urban development. And this is what they mentioned, making it easier for people to access public transit, or they're claiming services around going to the grocery, going to a store, going to get food, whatever it may be, whatever your purpose is or your plans throughout the day may be. But I wish we got a little bit more information on that. I think they shouldn't have even added those statements yet without a little bit more clarity or a little bit more detail, right? So yeah,
What do you have anything to add before jumping?
Oh yeah, well I'm just thinking about what Mo is saying, and I think that's not the goal of developers. The goal of developers is to make their buildings and eventually rent whatever space that they created, but to make it easily accessible, to make it a pleasant space for people to be, that's the urban planner's job.
Yeah. I definitely agree with Anne-Marie on that.
Feel agree to disagree with me. This is a fun discussion. I just think too much residential has been sort of thrown in our faces with these articles. I'm like, dude, that's not exactly what I'm trying to find here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Anne-Marie's point. Developers will focus on residential development. Realistically, they're not the ones providing transit, right? They just care about how much money they could make so that they could build more projects and then go like, oh, we boast an impressive track record at doing blah, 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 blah. Therefore, you should let us do blah, blah, blah in this city.
Exactly. Phase 1, the money from phase 1 leads to the phase 2, whose money will lead to phase 3.
Which will then lead to the expansion of the solar city in Brossard.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? Because look, I know developers focus on residential units. That's perfectly fine. But what I'm trying to say is I'm not looking for that type of information in this article, especially when it talks about urban development. I think that's part of it. I just don't want to keep seeing it. And I would prefer to see a little bit more clarity on the phases.
I would like to see more clarity on the phases too, because I'm reading different things. Like I'm reading that phase 1 is the redevelopment of the mall itself. Phase 2 is the residential once the REM starts. I think what's needed in these kinds of plans isn't just developer expectations where they're like, we are going to give you all of this. And by this, we mean in this project specifically 150 room hotel, 21-story senior residence, and 2-story rentals with between 150 and 200 units. Those are fancy numbers, but like Mo said, we need a plan. I'm not saying we need a PPU for this specific project, but there needs to be some kind of public consultation. Is this what the public actually wants? Is this what the public actually needs? Also, how could we get if there's a senior residence, how are they going to use the REM? Is it going to be accessible? We don't know. Is Fairview itself going to be accessible? Right now, there's only one elevator in that whole thing. And fun fact, it serves about 8 million people per year. And there's two elevators right next to each other at the middle of the mall. But you still have to walk all the way to the middle of the mall, come back, and that's the only elevator.
And then there's a price issue as well. Is it, if there's like one building for elderly residents, is it going to be a price that's reachable for them? Are they going to be able to pay for that? Or is it only going to be luxury apartments for the elderly with services at $4,000 plus per month? That's not accessible to a lot of people. And it's, at the moment, it's a lot of the private market for elderly residencies. So what do we do about that?
So I really love the point you made, because I feel like, especially with this type of development project, it really attracts the elderly, because I usually notice as couples get older, when their children move on with their lives, they probably move out of their homes. So they look to sell their homes and then move into a nice condo, you know. And the other side I see of it is young families who are looking for a place to start off at also go to these types of development, right? So you have two demographics that are sort of attracted to this, to these features. And I feel like these developers are really trying to attract the younger families more so than seniors or elderly people that have retired. It's very interesting, and I love how you brought that point up, that will there be adjustments made for their needs and for their accommodation? Who knows? I personally, I don't even think they've planned for that. I don't think they have. Like, I don't think they really have that first thought in their mind at all. I think they just want to attract the new generation in a way.
There's also different types of elderly residences. There's like, just retired, like 55 to 70, exactly. And then with absolutely no services. And then there's like the ones with a little bit of services, and the ones with like a lot of services for the elderly that need help 24/7 any time of the day. So it's probably going to be aimed towards the just retired population. If they aim for something that's elderly, then that raises another question of where do we provide space for these people, the rest of them.
And also it's a matter of like who's responsible for providing the space, whether it be for the elderly and they need their clinics, they need their orthopedic surgeons, they need their hearing aid specialists. But then if you're talking about an area that's full of youth, they need different services as well. They need their playgrounds, they need their schools, they need their daycares, or their like little Ronald McDonald parks so that the kids could play inside. Now, one thing about
special services.
Yeah, exactly.
Doctors for kids, whereas elderly people need doctors for elderly people.
Yeah. And another thing, while Fairview may have this walking program that allows like you to walk on one, because people are like texting and walking in the mall, they have a lane. If you go in the mall, they have a lane where it's like, watch out, there's elderlies walking, and it's like a speed walking competition thing. It's just to keep people busy. Now, is that a service that they need? Yes, they do need to be entertained in the winter, and yes, they do need to be active. Is the mall the best place to be?
We don't have community centers anymore. The shopping mall is our community center at the moment, which is very problematic in lots of different ways. But
exactly.
If the shopping mall is the community center, then you need a space for bingo, you need restaurants, and you need walking alleys, literally.
Like, how many times have you been to the Eaton Center? Well, even like before, or any mall, you go to the food court and you see like old people playing cards, right? Or you see, or you see like young people walking their kids in their strollers in the winter because that's where they have to go.
You see groups of like 14-year-olds like hanging out together because they have nothing else to do and just spending their parents' money.
dude, you know, I was really thinking about a mall that we have nearby, right? And it used to be hot. It used to like every every teen used to go there. You know, they had a bunch of stores, and then eventually it got run down, and then less, I don't know how to say it, but like stores that are not so known ended up coming and taking those spaces, taking the spaces in the malls. And you saw just a bunch of elderly people come in. You know, they're having their coffees, they're playing their cards. It's already like taken over completely. So I feel like malls go through these phases too when they're not so hot or attractive anymore, and when, especially during COVID, when so Champlain Mall, for example, in Brossard, for those Brossarders watching, if you've noticed, I'm sure you haven't yourself been to Champlain Mall in a long, long time, because nobody goes there. I hardly even go there. But whenever I do go there by chance, it's getting taken over because the elderly need something. They don't want to be outside. They don't have to be outside. So they want to go to the mall. They go with their friends. They sit, have a coffee, they play cards, and they just walk around and they judge youngsters walking by, you know, the new generation. So it's really funny.
But is a mall filled with Zara, Hudson's Bay, the Apple Store, Nespresso, what else is there? Bath and Body Works, the Simons that's opening. Is that really what the elderly population use? And is that where they actually shop? I know my grandmother, I know my puppy, she does not go to the mall and go to the Apple Store. She judges me so hard for having an iPad and a Mac and an iPhone.
Well, this goes back to the age range that they're aiming for. They're probably aiming for just retired people, which are going to get the Apple stuff. The women might even shop to Zara. You never know. My mom has some stuff from Zara. You know, it's just, it's the reality. They're like on the edge.
Honestly, they don't shop. I just find them using the space, the open spaces, and they're just like, they're having a good time. I wish I was having as much of a good time, but they're having a better time than I am these days. Damn.
Oh, you should go join them in their canasta and bingo games.
Honestly, I would join them.
My first job was at Hudson's Bay, and we had this lady, Madame Bouchard, and like her husband was like at home, but she was always like shopping for him or shopping for herself, and she was friends with all the employees at Hudson's Bay. And for Christmas, she brought us like sucre à la crème and like candy. She was lovely. So for her, the community center was the employees at Hudson's Bay, you know?
Of course. And guys, just a heads up, we have less than a minute until this call ends. Any final remarks? Because I think we've covered the topic pretty well so far, Aaron, Anne-Marie. Anything else that have to be said? Or we're good?
I mean, there's always more to be said, but I do want to say, stay tuned. There's all kinds of mall developments happening because malls are effectively community centers. They are the homes for the elderly. So keep an eye out on your malls because who knows whether they'll have a timeout market next or whether they'll just have a bingo hall.
And keep an eye
that's going to be our next topic. It has to be. Anyways, guys, take care. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next episode. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you continue to be with us. I know you're ditching us next weekend, but I'm holding you against it.
I will see you.
Stay safe, everyone. Wear your masks, wash your hands, sleep, drink water.
See ya.
The usual.
The usual.